Hi, I'm Nigel Chivers and I'm really concerned about global warming. I would like to tell you a story today that is actually more than just a theoretical what's going to happen in the future, that we've got sea levels rising, that there's the greenhouse effect. A lot of that is being disputed, but I'd like to tell you today about a story that's actually hitting you and me directly in the pocketbook. It's directly giving us an economical impact. The story that I would like to share with you today is about the insurance companies and how I looked a few months ago, this story started a few months ago, that my insurance premiums for a condo that I own suddenly went up like huge. And the reason that it went up huge was because I had to cover a huge deductible from the Strata Corporation. Let me explain further. When you live in a condo, there's two types of insurance. The Strata Corporation insures the whole complex, and they actually have a deductible on things like flood. So for instance, if a flood occurs, they expect that the person that has the flood will cover the deductible. And in the case of the Strata Corporation and the place that I own, they were expecting a few months ago $35,000. Okay, $35,000 isn't too bad if you get homeowners insurance. I personally pay my insurance for contents, but I also pay for insurance to cover the deductible of the Strata Corporation. So I'm not on the hook for that $35,000 if my dishwasher suddenly explodes, has a flood, and floods out my unit and maybe a unit below, and there's over $35,000 worth of damage. Well, the Strata Corporation will cover everything above $35,000, and I'm expected to cover the $35,000 deductible. So I go to my insurance company, and they said, "Good thing you paid for the deductible insurance, and I've got the deductible covered, and maybe I've got $2,000 that I have to pay." So what happened this last few months was I got a memo saying that my deductible that came from the Strata Corporation went from $35,000 to $150,000. So I rushed out and I paid a huge premium for my insurance. It went from $400 to, I can't remember, I think it was about $800, and I covered that deductible. And I thought, okay, everything's fine. And then a month later, my Strata Corporation said, "Well, we just got an increase in our Strata insurance deductible, and it's actually gone up to $250,000. So I went back to my insurance company, and they said, "We don't do that. We don't give $250,000 deductible coverage. That's too much." So I went to 4 other places, and they all said the same thing. So beginning to panic here, I finally got one company to do it. Now I'm paying $1,400 worth of insurance. So $400, $1,400. You can see where that economically hit me. So I immediately started thinking, what's the cause of this? What's the root cause? Is it the evil insurance companies trying to gouge me, or is it something more? So I did some research, and I found a company that I'd never heard of. It's called Munich Re. They're the biggest company in the world, which I was a little ashamed I didn't know them, but they're the biggest company in the world that does reinsurance. So the smaller insurance companies have to also insure themselves. And who do they go to? There's several options out there. Munich is the biggest one. There's Swiss Reinsurance. There's others, but this is the biggest. And if you look at their website and you look at some of the things that they've written, they've now got a warning that climate change is making insurance too expensive for the average person. That's phenomenal. These guys make their living analyzing statistics, looking at trends, and looking at what is causing disasters so they can minimize the amount that they pay out, and look at all of the reasons why things are going on the trends that they ask. Because they have to predict the trend or they go out of business, right? So they're predicting that global warming is making insurance too expensive. So looking at the statistics of this, so 2000 to 2009, there was a 1.8 trillion economic loss. That wasn't all covered by insurance, but that's the amount of property that was lost due largely to wildfire, flood, and drought. So, huge. So, what's the latest? What's the 2010? What's the last decade give us? So, doing more research, here it is. 3 trillion. So $3 trillion. That's US dollars. That's the loss that was incurred by everyone due to catastrophes in the last decade. So, in fact, all of that wasn't covered by insurance, but it's proportional. So, the insurance industry as a whole lost a lot of money this last decade compared to the decade before. So they don't really have a choice. If they want to stay afloat, they've got to put up the premiums and they have to put up the deductibles. So I'd like to challenge you to go out there and do a little research yourself, because this is phenomenal. This stuff is all over the internet. I came upon dozens of articles that all linked global warming, climate change to the natural disasters that are occurring nowadays and insurance going up. So this is actually a real example, present day, of how catastrophes related to global warming actually economically impacting you and I. So I hope that gives you some incentive to think about lowering your carbon footprint, because I know it did me. When I think about my children, when I think about the future, that gives me incentive. But it also gives me incentive when I think that I'm going to be economically impacted by events that are happening present day and something that can be prevented. I mean, if we all lower our carbon footprint, the next decade won't be another $1 trillion increase, because that's where we're headed right now. We're on a trend, and you can see it in a lot of the graphs out there, that there's more and more events like this happening. There's more wildfires in the Amazon, wildfires in Australia, wildfires in California, things that never happened before, and they were seen as 1 in 100-year events, and they're becoming more and more commonplace. So I'd ask you to please look at this stuff, and hopefully it'll give you some incentive to lower your carbon footprint. I'm Nigel, and I thank you for listening.